I just wanted to say thank you. So many of you have reached out to me asking for part two of my journey, and I felt like it was time. So, for those of you that are new, welcome. I posted about a year and a half ago a video where I was talking about where I was at in my life and what the Lord was doing through it, and that it was a hard season, and we were getting ready to move. So, people were asking, did you move? What happened? So, and I believe that really people don't care about my life. I don't love sharing about my life, but I do believe that there is power in seeing someone's journey and there's power in a testimony. So I pray that this blesses you and this encourages you. And if you want to see part one, I will put a link down in the show notes below. And so I'm just going to update you. My name is Kristen Cons. I am a nutrition therapist, natural food chef, and neurostrategist, and I help women to realize their full potential, the greatness that is within them, so that they can step into the fullness of who they've been created to be. And on that note, I'd love to know what you guys are interested in knowing about. Put in the comments below, let me know, or reach out to me some way about, do you want to know more about mindset, stepping into your potential? How do you know, who you were created to be? Just let me know. I want to make videos that bless you all. So, in part one, I told you about that the Lord had called my husband Brad and I to move from Dallas, Texas to the Carolinas, and that we had made a little pit stop in Ohio. And this 6 to 8 month pit stop turned into 5 years, 5 long years. As the fifth year was approaching, the grace was starting to lift for our time in Ohio. And I had told a friend that we were going to somehow make it down to the Carolinas by the summer of 2022 in time for our kids to start school. So in May of that year, I met with my friend and she asked me, so how are the plans coming with the move this summer? And I proceeded to tell her all the excuses of why it looked impossible. And this woman, she's very wise. She's very laid back and choosy with her words. And she's not the type to just jump in and say something. She just kind of sits back and listens. Well, this time she jumped in and she stopped me and she said, Kristen, you are operating out of fear. Have you called to check about the school you're wanting the kids in? Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done anything? And I was convicted because my mom had asked me those same exact questions the day earlier. And on top of that, this woman had moved from South Africa here to the United States during COVID. And she had the most miraculous testimony about how the Lord showed up and got them here to the United States, even when it looked impossible, with obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. So she looked at me very boldly and said, Kristen, I think if God can get us from South Africa to the United States when all the countries were shut down, I think she can get you a few states down to South Carolina. So, where I had already closed the door to moving and just settling into enduring more waiting, all of a sudden I thought, oh my gosh, she's right. It is time. And I need to let go of all of the disappointments and just the past few years of the waiting and the disappointments. Um, and just the fact that this whole season had not looked how I wanted it to look. So, lesson number one that I wanted to share is we might not always make the right decisions, or we might wait too long to do this or that, or make a wrong turn somewhere. But if we are truly seeking the Lord and willing to take action and taking the action, He will get us the message we need to move forward. And my friend got me the message that the Lord was like, it's time. Now, the key word is action, because I could still be in Ohio if I didn't take the action, if I didn't pick up the phone and do the things. Um, so, one of the main reasons that we were moving was for a private school for our kids. So that next day, I called and they were filling up unusually fast. So we put down some money and scheduled the school tour and the testing and all the things that we needed to do to get down there. And so we scheduled that a few weeks out. I think it was like the end of May to secure our spot. And as we all know, the housing market had been absolutely ridiculous and actually still is to buy a house. And the area that we were moving to was in very high demand, and the houses were double, sometimes triple the price that they should be. Now, our dream was to buy a house in cash. That was not going to quite happen at that point. So we kind of set that dream aside for the moment and we started to look for something that would work for this season. So we were working with a realtor and a house came up and she said that we should jump on it before it hit the market that weekend, because houses were selling, right as they hit the market and even before. So we were working with a loan officer and everything was set to move forward. So our realtor was going to look at the house for us. And if all went well, she was going to make an offer for us, sight unseen for us. So we received a call from our loan officer, and this was just a few hours before our realtor was going to look at the house and put an offer for us. And he said that we missed a signature and that we needed to sign that so that he could approve us. So when my husband went to his email to find what he needed to sign, he saw an email that had just come in saying that a contract that he had for his business was not going to be renewed. And that was a big part of our income. So, just like that, from getting ready to purchase a house to now losing the majority of our income. I mean, what are the chances? I couldn't believe it. So here we are saying, God, we trust you. We know that you've called us to this place. We are trying to move forward, and now we just lost our income. Now what? So I tried to stay calm and thankful that the contract fell through before we purchased the house. It wasn't in the house wasn't in the exact location that we wanted. We weren't able to pay in cash like we wanted. So I tried to just be okay with it, but was thinking seriously, what are we going to do now with the majority of our income gone? Well, by this time, our trip down to the Carolinas was fast approaching, where we had to put the rest of the money down that was non-refundable for the kids' school. So here we are. We've lost, our income. We don't know where we're going to live, and now we need to put thousands of dollars down to enroll the kids in the school by August, and we have to be down there. So we decide to go for it. And we travel down to the Carolinas for the school appointment. We put the rest of the non-refundable money down and officially enroll the kids in the school, but no leads on where to live. So it really was a hard trip going down there. I was honestly just really angry that we were in this situation when we had waited for so long and worked so hard to be set up and to be settled in this area that God had called us to. And it was officially the most expensive time in history to buy a house. And here we were, after waiting 7 years from when the Lord called us to this place, trying to buy a house when we were trying to be good stewards of our money and not be in debt with a house loan. So you say, why not rent? Well, we were open to that. But the same situation, astronomically high, overpriced rentals, And every time something hit the market, it was gone even before we could call on it. So I'll spare you all the details, but I was not very encouraged and I was kind of a little bit angry about all of it. So we came back to Ohio and continued to pray and wait. And by this time, it was June and we had to be down there by August. So we were watching for the market for something that would make sense for us. And our realtor, we were working with her as well. And Brad was trying to secure a new contract for our income. So now it was mid-July, and this was our last chance to secure housing by August. And we saw one rental house that might work. So we called our realtor, and she says she'd set up a viewing for us and confirms that nothing else that she could see on her end was really available to rent that would make sense for us in the area that we wanted. And so she suggested paying a person that specializes in rentals and that kind of has more of an inside scoop from the rental perspective. So during this same time, my husband gets a contract that comes through miraculously. Not exactly what we needed, but enough to get us down there. So we hire the rental person to help us, and she says we'll have no problem and that she'll be in contact with us as we're driving down there and line up a whole bunch of showings for us to look at. And we could easily have a place before we even come down to look at it. We could secure it. So she's telling me about all these testimonies and all these things, no problem. So we're halfway there through our drive, and we haven't heard anything from her. And so I reach out, and she's like, oh, I'm working on it. So another hour goes by, nothing. She finally reaches back out and she says, there's nothing in your price range. And we have to up it to like $3,000-$4,000 per month. And she could find something for us then. And I'm like, absolutely not. We gave you our budget. You said it's not a problem. We will find something. So, long story short, we were there a week, one door shut after another. So, lesson number 2, why not just interpret all of these closed doors as this is just not meant to be? Because we know that we know that we know that we heard from the Lord. We had to go back and we had to stand on what we heard 7 years prior. We had to stand on the fact that God told both my husband and I separately, before we even knew each other, knew that he called us down to the Carolinas, before we had even talked to each other. And we had unity about it. We had to question our motives and remind ourselves why we were moving. It wasn't for either of us, Brad or I, it was for our kids to get a specific foundation for their future and their destiny. There was no selfish motive with this move. In fact, we really wanted to stay in Dallas in our dream home, honestly, with our dream life. We did not want to move. And it was messing up my plans. But God's plan is always better. Not always easier, but it's always better. So the very last day that we were in the Carolinas to secure housing for the August move, our rental specialist said that she found something. It was a townhome to rent. It was in the exact location that we wanted, but our last choice in what we wanted. But she said, please just look at this. So the owner of the townhome already had several applications and was taking everything first come, first serve, was opening it up this weekend for everyone to come look at. So our rental lady talked to him and he agreed to let us see it. And if we liked it, he would let us have it. Now, we were still waiting to hear back from that original house that we had found ourselves that was for rent. And we looked at that the first day that we were there, and it would work, but we had heard nothing back from them. Even despite our calling and everything, we heard nothing. So our rental lady kept pushing us away from this house because it was being rented by a large rental company, and she didn't think that it was a good idea. But there was nothing else. So I was kind of frustrated with that. And it was a house with a yard in a neighborhood, and it was a much better fit for us than a townhome with two little kids. So we looked at the townhome, and it was new, it was nice, it was very small, no yard. We all liked the house better. And we only had one day to decide because the townhome owner, as I said, was getting ready to rent it to someone else. But we really, really wanted to hear about the house. So we were driving home. We got a call from the rental house company, and they were asking us for more information, which I thought was so weird. And I asked why. And did we get the house? If they're wanting more information, did we get it? And they said, no, we already rented that like a week ago. Um, but we have other houses. And I said, in the same area, in this area, they didn't have any houses anywhere close within the vicinity. So I was furious that they never reached out and contacted us to tell us that we did not get that house, and that they had no other houses in the area. If I didn't ask all those questions, I would have thought, oh, okay, they have another house in the area. Nothing. So the rental specialist was right. So here we were trying to hold out and trying to, and we almost missed, the opportunity for the townhome because I wasn't even going to go look at it. So we all decided that while it wasn't our first choice, it wasn't what we had in mind, it wasn't about us. It wasn't about where we wanted to live. It was just about being obedient and going where the Lord called us to go. So that was lesson number 3. And for me, it was the most valuable lesson because God might call us to do something, but that doesn't mean that the outcome will be what we have fabricated in our mind. It's not wise to decide the outcome on what the Lord is asking us to do. That doesn't dictate if we've heard from Him or not. And our job is just to obey. And the outcome, if we're putting stipulations on it, will often leave us questioning if we've heard him correctly. It often leaves us disappointed. So obeying is our job, and many times the Lord calls us to do something to mature us or to gain wisdom or gain an experience. It doesn't mean that it's the end all be all with a blockbuster ending. It's just part of our journey. Okay. So to wrap this up full circle, that business that the Lord asked me to say yes to back in part 1, the journey video, the one that I did not want to do, that income from that business is paying for the kids' private school. So who knew except the Lord? Even though we lost all of that money in that contract, and God wasn't surprised. He used my obedience to say yes to that business to make up for what we had lost and position the kids where He wanted them to be. So His ways aren't our ways, but He's always good. So the lessons we learned, lesson number 1, we might not always make the right decisions or hear the Lord accurately, but if we're truly seeking Him, we can't miss it. We can't mess it up. We can't miss it. He will get us to where He wants us to go. He will get us the message that we need to move forward, but we do have to take the action. Lesson number 2, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not God. Go back to what the Lord originally told you, lay it on the table, be willing to lay it down. Um, but persevere if you know that you should, and consider your motives. Do they line up with his word and your purpose? All right, lesson number 3. God might call us to do something, but that doesn't mean the outcome will be what we have fabricated in our mind. Our job is just to obey. So don't put those stipulations on when he asks you to do something, what it should look like. If you want to watch part 1, the link will be below in the show notes. And let me know if you're interested in a part 3. What's happened since we've been here for the past year and a half, and what he's done in the place that he called us 7 years that it took to get here. So if you would like, subscribe, comment below, and I will see you all next time.